Boker Tov. So yesterday we talked about a family who moved to Israel and doubt whether they're going to stay there or not, and the distinction between that and a single person and the different opinions with regards to all of this. But leaving that aside, if a person is just visiting, then he needs to keep 2 days, according to the majority of the opinions, unlike the Hacham Tzvi, that one keeps 1 day always in Israel. However, there is another leniency with regards to this, which both Shomer Zalman Auerbach and Hacham Ovadia rule. But one needs to understand what exactly their ruling is. And that is, Rav Shomer Zalman Auerbach writes that a person who has a property in Israel and it's customary for him or her or for the family to spend the 3 Yamim Tovim, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot in Eretz Israel. Since the whole idea of keeping 2 days is based on the Yom Tov outside of Chutz La'aretz, and this person spends the Chagim, generally speaking, in Israel, and they have a property there, so it's easy for them to be able to spend the Chag there because they own a property there. Therefore, a person in such a case only needs to keep 1 day for the Yamim Tovim he's there. And Rav Shomer Zalman adds that even if it happens to be 1 year, they weren't able to go for all the 3 Chagim. 1 year, they, for whatever reason, they weren't able to go for Shavuot, they weren't able to go for Pesach. COVID happened, you couldn't travel, whatever it may be. But generally speaking, you spend your 3 Chagim in Eretz Israel in your property there, then you only need to keep 1 day. And Hacham Ovadia rules exactly the same, that if you spend your 3 Chagim there and you have a property there, you only keep 1 day there. Rav Shomer Zalman held, in addition to this, that even if you don't own a property, the owning of the property is not the main thing here. The idea of the property is that it's easy for you to spend the 3 Chagim there. He wanted to add and say that even if you don't necessarily own a property there, but you spend your 3 Chagim there, let's say you spend it in a hotel or you rent a property, but generally speaking, you spend the 3 festivals there, that is also sufficient to be able to keep 1 day. However, doesn't say this, but it's probable he would agree to this, because the idea of owning property is not just some magical thing that because I own a property there, I only have to keep 1 day. The idea is it's easy for you to spend time there. And this is ascertained by the fact that you do spend the 3 Chagim there. So even if I don't necessarily have my own property there, but I spend the 3 Chagim generally there, that is sufficient to only keep 1 day. Others disagreed with this. They held that even if, since the majority of the year you spend in Chutz La'aretz, even if you spend the 3 Chagim there, it's insufficient. But as we said, there was the opinion of Hacham Ovadia and of Shomer Zalman. One can keep only 1 day in such a case. The fact that a person owns property in Israel seems to be insufficient, certainly according to Hacham Ovadia and of Shomer Zalman, to be able to keep 1 day. If a person spends every year Pesach there in Israel, he spends every year Sukkot, etc. But it's not all the 3 Chagim, and it's once a year, or not even. And they say, look, I have a property there, I own a property there, so therefore I should be able to keep 1 day. It would seem that that would be insufficient, and one still would need to keep 2 days. The idea is the 3 Chagim, because the whole concept of second day Yom Tov is based on the 3 Chagim, and the 3 Chagim I'm normally always spending in Israel. So then you only need to keep 1 day. But just because I own a property there, it's not sufficient. But what we're trying to say here is that the main factor is not the owning of the property. The owning of the property is a means in which you're able easily to spend the 3 Chagim there. That seems to be their ruling and reasoning. I will add and say that there were poskim, of Melamed, for example, who says if you do own a property in Israel, that's sufficient to be able to keep 1 day, because the fact that you own a property there means that you have intent to come eventually to Israel, and therefore when you are there, you can keep 1 day. You have the status when you are there, of course. Just because I own a property, even a content, doesn't mean I can keep 1 day when I'm outside of Israel. It's because whilst I'm there, the fact I bought a property there shows that I intend to reside here in the long term, and therefore that intent is sufficient for a person to be able to keep 1 day. As I said, that is not the opinion of Hacham Ovadia or Shomer Zalman. They seem to say that the idea is the 3 Chagim is the main part. And even according to Rav Melamed, even if one was to take on this view, it needs to be that person's bought a property not for investment purposes or financial reasons. He's bought a property there because he really genuinely intends in the near future to spend time there and to live there. If I bought a property there because real estate in Israel is a great investment, and that's the reason he's bought there, then obviously no one would agree that would help. That's not the point. The point is, have I bought a property there with the intent that I want to spend my life, the rest of my life there, when it becomes feasible in the near future? So then, according to Melamed, one could. But just by having a property there is not a magical thing that suddenly you only have to keep one day. So in conclusion, there are poskim, Hamabadian Shemazalmer holds that if you spend the 3 Chagim, this is the main point. You spend 3 Chagim in Israel, you only need to keep one day when you're there, even if it's not every year you spend 3 years, but generally speaking, that's your intention and you do. But the fact that you just own a property is insufficient. There are those who hold owning a property with intent to live there in the near future is sufficient for a person to keep one day.